I am obsessed with rice wine. It's light, easy to drink, and it can be sweet or dry depending on your preference. And nothing is quite as special as making your own. But last time I made sake, or Japanese rice wine, I got a lot of comments saying I should try something called Macoli, a Korean rice wine. And while I was curious, I didn't think to give it a go, because really, how different could it be? And wow, did I mess up, because Macoli is a whole nother world of flavors. While they share the main ingredient of rice, their method of fermentation is quite a bit different, and honestly way simpler to make than sake. But like any new fermentation, it doesn't come without some learning curves. And boy, did I learn a lot on this one. What the heck? But don't worry, I'll share all my findings so you can make the easiest rice wine at home with only 3 ingredients and stuff you might have around your kitchen. So let's not waste any time and let's make Macoli. If you've never heard of Macoli, here's a super short description, at least according to the internet. This rice wine has reported to have been brewed in Korea since the 1st century, in some legends being referred to as cloudy rice wine. And as time progressed, it became a traditional drink to homebrew, especially by the rural working class. However, in 1934, homebrewing in Korea was banned, which didn't help its popularity. But the ban was finally lifted in 1990, and since then, it has steadily grown in popularity. Macoli typically appears cloudy or milky, and it's usually slightly sweet and tangy. As far as alcohol content, it's usually around 6 to 9%, making it great for drinking with friends over a nice meal. To make Macoli, it only takes 3 ingredients: rice, water, and Nuruk, which is the powerhouse of this fermentation. Nuruk is kind of like the sourdough starter for Macoli. It's a combo of wheat, rice, and barley that's mashed together into a cake and left to ferment. The microorganisms in the ingredients work together to not only convert the starches in the rice to sugars, but also to ferment those sugars into alcohol. Fermentation really is a magical thing. So all I needed to do was get some rice and buy some Nuruk online, which was luckily quite easy to find. And thanks to the power of the internet, I have 2 of the 3 ingredients ready to go. First up, we have the rice, and this is the same rice that I used in the rice wine sake video. And actually in that video, a lot of you told me that this is actually Korean characters on here. So I figured that would be perfect for this. I don't know if you need to use the specific polished rice, but at least in sake making, I know that the more polished the rice, the more sweeter and more smoother taste you can get. So I'm gonna try for that, and I'll be steaming it today like I did in the sake video. And in this other bag, I have what's gonna make all the fermentation possible. And this is a powdered enzyme called Nuruk. And this actually even has a recipe on the back of it. So that's gonna make it even easier. I'm just gonna follow this when I make this. I'm gonna double the recipe, but we don't need to worry about this right this second. Let's start by making some rice. In order to get the best results with the rice, it's a good idea to soak the rice for at least a couple hours before making this. I didn't do it here, and you'll see that I have a few rice grains that don't get fully cooked, but it won't be too much of an issue. If anything, slightly undercooked is said to be okay. Overcooked can lead to a lot of bad flavors. The real important part is to wash the rice until it runs fairly clear. About 3 to 4 times should be enough. And then steam the rice. Steaming not only helps cook the rice to give the microorganisms a chance to unlock the starches and sugars, but steaming also keeps the integrity of the rice intact. Otherwise, it can get mushy, and like I said, lead to less desirable flavors. So if you got a rice cooker, whip that out. But I just have a pot filled halfway with water and this colander that just happens to perfectly fit the top. Let the water boil and the rice steam for about 45 minutes to an hour. It can help to stir the rice every 15 minutes or so to ensure even steaming, but it's not required. Once the rice is fully steamed, pull it out and place the rice into a clean baking sheet or casserole dish to spread out the rice and let it cool down. Here you can see some of the not fully cooked rice, but it still breaks when I smush it, so it's at least partially cooked. Once it's all spread out, placing it near a window with a nice breeze can help it cool down a little bit faster. While that cools, let's get the other ingredients together. Of course, we need something to ferment in. I'm using this homebrew fermenter, but traditionally this would be fermented in a crock or clay pot of some kind. But just use whatever you got. If you got a big mason jar, that works too. Just make sure it's clean and sanitized before using. If you homebrew and already have food grade sanitizer like this, you can use it, but if not, just give it a good wash with soap and water and rinse it well. I then added the water, 1 gallon. I will say that the rice to water ratio can impact the final taste. This amount should leave us with a less sweet final result. But if you want a sweeter final product, then consider using less water. In fact, a lot of the recipes that I saw online use a lot less water. But I'm just going to continue with the recipe on the bag and hope for the best. I then followed the water with the Nuruk, the whole bag, 450 grams. and this looked so cool. Lastly, using a clean spoon, I added the rice. I gave it a good mix to ensure even distribution, and then added a lid that was just barely screwed on so that any CO2 produced during fermentation can release and not build up pressure in the fermenter. We don't want any explosions. I then transferred it into my new fermentation chamber, which helps regulate the temperature to the perfect zone. Which is all thanks to this video's sponsor, Tablesmith. This is the Tablesmith Heater 4, a modular temperature regulator that you can use to control ambient air temp of your fermentation space. I opted to use a cooler to make the perfect fermentation chamber. All I needed to do was drill a hole on the side, or if you have a cooler that already has a drain hole, you don't even need to modify it. Just place the heater module inside the cooler and run the cable through the hole and connect it to the hub. And that's it. Now you can regulate the temperature from 71 degrees Fahrenheit all the way up to 145 degrees Fahrenheit. And the Heater 4 will keep it perfectly at whatever temp you want. If you live in a cool climate and struggle to keep things warm, or just looking for a little more precision in your fermentation, be sure to check out Tablesmith. They also have temperature regulators to cool things down if you live in a hot climate. And thanks again to Tablesmith for sponsoring the video. If you don't have a cool temperature control device, don't worry. Macoli is pretty chill. It likes to ferment at room temp, so anywhere from 64 to 77 degrees Fahrenheit will do just fine. With some sources saying the cooler side can lead to a cleaner final result. So just find a nice spot in your home that has consistent temps and is out of direct sunlight and let it ferment. All right, it's been a day, let's check it out. Oh, nice. Something is definitely happening. So far things have been going pretty good for my first Macoli, but here's where things start to take a little bit of a turn for me. The instructions on the bag and online all said to make sure to stir the Macoli for the first 3 to 4 days to help incorporate oxygen and evenly mix it up. So I did that. And while it was looking promising at first, by day 5, I noticed something was off. What the heck? That's crazy looking. Disaster has struck. Kind of. So about 4 days ago, I went down and checked on the fermentation, and before that, things were looking great. Things were acting normal as they should, but when I opened it, I saw the most insane thing I've ever seen, which was clear signs of an infection. And this has never actually happened to me before, but I'm well aware of it. I've seen it happen in other fermentations. This is called calm yeast. And it's actually pretty common. I know, I'm sorry. Anyways, when I looked at it, at first I was like, whoa, this is pretty sweet. I got this awesome picture. But then I was like, what does this mean for my fermentation? Is it done for? Can I still drink something like this? So I went on a deep dive learning all about calm yeast, and I figured this would be a perfect opportunity to share what I learned. So according to Google, calm yeast is a harmless, white to beige, thin or wrinkled film that grows on the surface of lacto-fermented vegetables, kombucha, or sourdough due to oxygen exposure, low acidity, or warm temperatures. And while it is safe, it can cause off flavors, so it's best to be removed by skimming or rinsing. And it's distinct from the fuzzy, colorful mold. It actually is white and has a light powdery look to it and has these little bubbles on top. So that's good news. It actually is still drinkable. It may just be a little bit off from what I'm hoping the final flavor would be, but that doesn't mean that this is completely ruined. I have to throw it all away. You can try to scrape the calm yeast off. It eventually will just come back. It's one of those things like no matter how much you try to scrape off the top of the calm yeast, it's still in the fermentation. So it eventually, even if you get it out, it'll eventually come back. So it's just something you're gonna have to live with. Like they said, it's not harmful to you to consume. It might just change the flavor a little bit. But I want this to be the best possible recipe for you guys. So I'm gonna brew it again and try and do it perfectly. And looking at the reasons that can cause calm yeast, I think there's 4 main things that can happen. First is too much oxygen. And I was definitely stirring this up a lot in those first 4 days, maybe too much. Plus there's a lot of headspace here. So I think in this next batch, I'm not gonna stir it as much, and I'm actually gonna close the lid down and put an airlock so that all that CO2 that's created can escape, but no extra oxygen is getting in. The second thing is temperature. And while this was kept at an acceptable range for Macoli, thanks to the Heater 4, I think that I will try and lower the temperature a little bit just to negate that issue. The third thing is poor sanitation, which I'm not really too concerned with. I always use a food grade sanitizer like Star San whenever I'm, cleaning out my fermenters or bottles or things like that. But I will give this a really good scrub and a fresh set of sanitizer so that it's ready to go. And the fourth reason could be low acidity. A lot of times in fermentations, if your pH level or acidity level of the ferment is too low, that can lead to other bacteria and yeast growing that you don't want. And I looked up some solutions. Some people say you can actually add brewer's yeast into this, which can help the fermentation and drive a pH lower. But, you know, I want this Macoli to be as is intended with the Nuruk, rice, and water only. So I probably won't be using that. But if I experience this issue again after taking care of the first three, then I probably will try that for the third batch. But hopefully, fingers crossed, it'll work for the second batch. Now is a good time to also talk about how do you know when your fermentation's done? And according to the internet, there are 3 ways you can know. The first is any signs of bubbling. There should be almost no signs of bubble going on, which I don't really see much here. Maybe a couple little bubbles trapped here and there, but I don't see any active fermentation going on. The second one is the smell and taste. And since this is infected, I can't really tell if this is how it's supposed to smell, but it does have kind of a bit of a sweet alcohol scent to it. You can also taste it. I'm just gonna scrape this calm yeast to the side a little bit. Okay, yeah, that tastes sweet. There's a little bit of a funk to it, but its taste does remind me a lot of the rice wines I've made in the past, so that's a good sign. And the third way to tell is there's usually 3 distinct layers in the fermentation. In my case, I have a little bit of a yeast sludge at the bottom, some rice here in the middle, and then the Macoli rice wine at the top. And I've seen it can kind of depend on the fermentation. There might be a different order, but in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and bottle this up. Why not? Let's just see how it tastes, and it'll be a good comparison point when I have the perfect one to compare to later. So for that, I'll be using my fermentation grade bottles that I love to use, and I've used them in all my soda videos. And I'll also be using a strainer and this little mesh thing so that I can strain out most of this Nuruk and rice and just get that good liquid. So I bottled those up and then remade batch number 2. This time making sure to soak the rice before cooking. See, I can learn. Then adding it in, the Nuruk, and water to a clean and sanitized fermenter. I also opted to add a little bit of citric acid. For the sake recipe, I said to add hops or citric acid, which both can help with keeping the bad microbes at bay. So I figured it couldn't hurt this batch as a little extra insurance. I added 5 grams of citric acid. I don't think it's completely necessary for your batch, but if you do have some, or having some of the same issues I had, give it a try. I then sealed down the lid and added an airlock. This will keep any additional oxygen out, but let the CO2 made during fermentation escape. I then let it ferment, undisturbed, and no mixing. And while it did have a slower start than the first batch, fermentation was rolling after just a few days. I let it continue to ferment until there was no more bubbles in the airlock, about 10 days, and then bottled them up just like the other batch. I ended up straining the Macoli through this nut bag so I could squeeze it and get all that milky goodness out. And it also gave me a little bit extra, so I was able to bottle a little more. I couldn't be more excited to give these a try and see how homemade Macoli tasted. It's Macoli time, and I could not be more excited to give these a try. This has been a long one. The rebrewing definitely made this a little bit longer than I would have hoped. And you know, trying something new like this, it always takes a little bit of extra effort to do the research, and I want to make the best video possible for you. So this has been a long awaited one, but I'm excited to dive in. And as you can see, I have 2 different versions right here. So this is the original version. It looks quite different. It's much more clear. I don't know if it's just the time that's led to that or because I actually did squeeze the rice in this one, but this has a much more traditional Macoli look, I think. And I am glad that I did put these in fermentation bottles because even this morning when I was testing these out and opening them up, they were definitely quite active. So make sure if you are bottling these that you either burp them or you put them in pressure safe bottles. But enough talk, let's do this. So I'm gonna mix these up because that's what I read online you're supposed to do. Kind of helps give it more of a creamy taste. So this one, to remind you, it has the calm yeast in it. And this is the second batch. Give it a good mix. And it is said that these are best served chilled, so I did cool these down in the fridge before pouring these. All right, let's see. Let's see how much the calm yeast really messed things up. As far as aroma goes, they are almost identical. Let's give them a taste. Let's go for the second batch first. That's super interesting. It is a lot more tart than I expected. It definitely has some sweetness, but it's not as clean and crisp as like the sake was. But that is still really good. It's not funky, it's not weird tasting. It just has a bit of a zip tanginess and then that creamy sweet rice that comes through. That's really good. It's very refreshing too. I feel like this would be great on like a hot day. All right, let's try the Kamyis one now to compare. Okay, yeah, there's definitely a difference. This has much more of like acidity, whereas this is more like tangy. This almost tastes like vinegar. It has a very like vinegary bite to it. I understand now what they mean when they say the Kamyis can affect the taste, but it isn't undrinkable by any means, and it's not unusable. You could probably use this in some cooking and it would taste great, but it just is a little bit more harsh. Yeah, not for me. I'm glad I rebrewed it. Honestly, I'm getting a little bit of cider vibes, reminding me of my naturally fermented cider from a few videos ago. But it still has like a smoothness. I think the rice being mixed in like that and squeezing the rice to get all the sweetness out, it really makes it nice and smooth. But I'd love to see how this kind of mellows out with time. I've read that the longer you let it sit and cool out in the fridge, the more mellow the flavors might become. And of course, if I wanted to, I could make this sparkling. If I kept the bottle sealed, it would build pressure. But I think for now, I'm gonna keep it still. Make sure to burp it every now and then just continue to enjoy this as long as I can. This is definitely a fermentation that I love to keep playing with. I love to try the rice ratios where it's a little more 1-to-1 water and see how that tastes different. But for my first Macoli, I couldn't be happier. So if you enjoyed this one and you're looking for some more super unique fermentations, I got a video right here that I think you'll like. And until next time, gombe and happy brewing.